Let's talk about variety. Variety is what takes something from good to unforgettable. Because here's the reality. Doing the exact same thing over and over, no matter how good it feels in the beginning, eventually stops being exciting. Our brains are wired to crave novelty. We're addicted to contrast, to change, to surprise. And that's just as true in intimacy as it is anywhere else. Think about your favorite song. If the whole track was just the same note repeated, would you love it? No, of course not. What makes it beautiful is the highs, the lows, the rhythm, the build, the drop. It's the variation that makes you want to hear it again and again. And the same thing applies here. If you want him completely wrapped up in you, if you want him never knowing what's coming next, you have to mix it up. Now, variety doesn't mean you need to reinvent the wheel every 2 seconds or pull out some secret repertoire of advanced tricks. It's not about complication. It's about awareness. It's about knowing that speed, pressure, rhythm, and even silence can all become tools when you shift between them. Start slow, then surprise him by switching the pace. Use light pressure, then add more intensity. Combine your hands with your mouth, then pull back and tease him with just one. Every time you change something, it forces his body and his mind to pay attention again. That's what keeps him on edge in the best way. And here's the key: variety isn't just about physical technique. It's about the emotional energy you bring to each moment. Sometimes you're playful, teasing him, making him laugh, drawing it out. Other times you're intense, focused, raw. When you shift gears emotionally, you take him on a journey he can't predict. And unpredictability is magnetic. It keeps him hooked because he doesn't know what version of you is about to show up next. The beauty of variety is that it also buys you freedom. Too many people feel stuck thinking they have to get it right from start to finish, as if there's only one perfect rhythm they have to lock into and never break. That's exhausting, and it's unnecessary. The truth is, breaking the rhythm is part of what makes it powerful. It's the pause before you start again. It's the sudden change that jolts him into the present. Those moments of contrast are what make everything else more intense. And remember, his body will tell you what works. If you're paying attention, you'll notice the difference between when he's just comfortable and when he's completely undone. You'll notice the shift in his breathing, the tension in his muscles, the way he moves toward you. That feedback lets you know when to stay where you are and when to switch things up. So variety doesn't have to mean guessing. It means experimenting, noticing, and adjusting in real time. It's also about knowing that less can be more. Sometimes pulling back, slowing down, or even stopping for a second can be more powerful than just going harder and faster. Why? Because you're creating suspense. You're letting his imagination do half the work for you. When you pause, his brain fills in the gap with anticipation. And when you finally give him what he's waiting for, it feels 10 times more intense. That's the power of variety. You're not just giving pleasure, you're creating contrast that makes each peak feel higher. And let's not forget the hands, the body, the voice. Variety is about layering. You don't have to rely on one thing. Use your hands in sync or against the rhythm. Use your body, the closeness of your skin, the way you hold him in place or pull back to make him chase you. Even the sound of your breath or a word whispered in the right moment becomes part of the symphony. When you mix those things together, you're not just giving him sensation. You're giving him an experience he's never had before. But here's the most important part: variety isn't just for him. It's for you too. Because when you allow yourself to change things up, when you give yourself permission to explore, you stay engaged. You stay curious. You keep yourself out of autopilot. And that energy, that sense of playfulness and freedom, is what he'll feel most of all. He'll sense that you're not just doing something to him. You're enjoying it with him, and that's when it becomes unforgettable. At the end of the day, variety isn't about being perfect. It's not about memorizing a list of moves. It's about being alive in the moment, willing to shift, to play, to surprise. Because when you do, he won't be able to relax into routine. He'll be on that edge, caught between not wanting it to end and not knowing what's coming next. And that's when he'll remember you, not just for what you did, but for the way you made him feel, completely captivated. That's the power of variety. The most underrated skill in intimacy isn't some hidden technique. It's the ability to read someone's cues and respond. Because the truth is, his body is constantly giving you information. Every breath, every sound, every shift is feedback. And when you learn to tune into that, you unlock a level of connection that no trick or technique could ever give you. Most people are so focused on what they're doing that they miss what's happening right in front of them. They're caught up in their own head, thinking, am I doing this right? Is he enjoying this? Should I change it? But the answers to those questions are always there. If you just pay attention, he'll show you if he's into it. He'll show you if he wants more or less or something different. And when you respond to that, he feels something rarer, he feels understood. Think about how powerful that is. Most men go through their lives rarely being asked what they want, rarely being truly listened to in those moments. So when you're the one who notices, when you pick up on his breath quickening, or the way his body leans toward you, or even the tiniest sound he makes, you're telling him without words, I see you, I feel you, I'm tuned into you, and that creates intimacy that goes far beyond the physical. Now, this doesn't mean you need to act like a detective, analyzing every tiny reaction. It's not about overthinking, it's about presence. When you're fully there, when you're not distracted or worried about getting it perfect, you naturally notice these things. And once you notice them, you can respond. Maybe you slow down when you feel him tense. Maybe you speed up when you hear his breath catch. Maybe you pause when you sense he's right on the edge, just to tease him a little longer. It's not a formula. It's a dance. And like any dance, the magic is in the responsiveness. Imagine dancing with someone who ignores the rhythm, who moves without paying attention to you. It feels disconnected. But when they match your steps, when they sense the slightest change and move with you, suddenly you feel in sync. That's what reading and responding does. It puts you in sync with him so that every move feels like it belongs to both of you. The beauty of this is that it makes him feel safe enough to let go. Because when he knows you're paying attention, he doesn't have to worry about directing you or controlling the experience. He can surrender to it, trust that you'll pick up on what he needs, and that trust deepens everything. It shifts the moment from physical to emotional, from surface level to unforgettable. And sometimes reading cues means going beyond his reactions in the moment. It means noticing the kind of person he is. Some men respond more to intensity, others to gentleness. Some are vocal, some are quieter. Some love to be teased, others prefer a direct approach. When you pay attention to those patterns, you begin to understand not just what feels good, but what kind of energy he thrives on. And when you give him that, he feels known. And that's intoxicating. Let's be real. This is what separates a forgettable experience from one he'll never stop thinking about. Because techniques can be copied, but the feeling of being seen, of being responded to in the moment, that's unique. That's something no one else can replicate exactly the way you can. and that's why it stays with him. Now, let me address the fear that often comes up. What if I misread the cues? What if I get it wrong? First, understand that even if you do, the very act of paying attention already makes the experience better. He'll feel that you're trying, that you care, that you're not just going through the motions. And second, this is where communication comes in again. If you're not sure, ask, playfully, confidently, in a way that doesn't break the flow. Do you want more of this? Or do you like it faster or slower? It doesn't ruin the moment. It deepens it, because you're showing you actually want to get it right for him. And when you combine the verbal with the nonverbal, when you use his words and his body as a guide, you can't lose. Because you're not stuck in your head, trying to guess. You're with him, moment by moment, shaping the experience together. And that collaboration, that shared creation, is what makes intimacy feel alive. At the end of the day, the best lovers aren't the ones who know every technique. They're the ones who listen. They're the ones who see the subtle shifts, who adjust, who respond, who make the other person feel like they're not just being touched, they're being understood. And when you give that to him, you give him something far more powerful than pleasure. You give him connection. And that is what he'll never forget. That's what reading and responding really means. There's something that people often overlook when they think about intimacy. They obsess over the build-up. They obsess over the act itself. But they forget the part that lingers the longest. What happens afterward? Because how you handle those moments after can completely change the meaning of the experience. It's the difference between something that feels transactional and something that feels deeply connective. And this is where aftercare comes in. Now, when I say aftercare, I don't mean it in some heavy or clinical way. I'm talking about the small, simple ways you reinforce closeness once the intensity has passed. Think about it. Right after, his body is relaxed, his mind is open, his guard is down. That's when he's most impressionable. That's when what you do or don't do leaves its mark. If you just roll over, check your phone, or act like it was nothing, that sends a message. But if you take that moment to hold him, kiss him, tease him playfully, or simply stay close, that sends an entirely different message. This wasn't just about release. This was about connection. And that's what most people crave far more than the act itself. Connection. Because let's face it, the mechanics aren't that hard to figure out. But feeling like you shared something meaningful, feeling like you're not just a body, but a person who matters, that's rare. And that's what aftercare creates. Think about how powerful it feels when someone doesn't just disappear emotionally once it's over. When instead, they double down on presence. Maybe they laugh with you. Maybe they compliment you. And maybe they just lie there with you and let the silence feel warm instead of awkward. Those are the moments that last. Those are the moments he replays in his mind long after. And here's something important. Aftercare doesn't always look the same. Sometimes it's tender and soft, like wrapping yourself around him and whispering something that makes him smile. Sometimes it's playful, like joking about how good he looked or teasing him about how undone he got. Sometimes it's grounding, like simply touching his chest or stroking his hair, letting him know he's safe and wanted. The form doesn't matter as much as the message. That this was more than physical, that you're still there with him. When you do this, you also separate yourself from almost everyone else. Because so many people don't bother. They see the act as the destination, not realizing it's actually just one part of the journey. And by missing that last piece, they miss the chance to create a memory that sticks. But when you give him that aftercare, When you make the end as meaningful as the beginning, you create a loop. You make him want to come back to you, not just because of how you made him feel in the moment, but because of how you left him feeling afterward. And let's be honest, this isn't just for him. It's for you too, because aftercare deepens the bond in both directions. It allows you to savor what just happened, to let it settle, to feel appreciated and connected yourself. It transforms intimacy into something richer. It reminds both of you that you're not just sharing pleasure. You're sharing trust, affection, closeness. Think about your favorite memories with someone. It's rarely just about what happened. It's about how you felt when it was over. Did you feel safe? Did you feel valued? Did you feel close? Or did you feel like it was empty? That's the real test. And that's why aftercare is not an optional extra. It's essential. Because in the end, you can be incredible in the moment. You can have all the confidence, all the variety, all the responsiveness in the world. But if you don't take care of the ending, it can all evaporate. People remember the last note. They remember how they were left. And if you leave him with warmth, with connection, with playfulness or tenderness, that's the part that sticks. That's the part that makes him not just want more of the act, but more of you. So don't rush it. Don't treat the end as an afterthought. Treat it as part of the experience, because it is. In many ways, it's the most important part. And when you get it right, when you make him feel held, understood, and appreciated afterward, you take the entire experience to a level that's unforgettable. That's the power of aftercare. You know what most people miss when it comes to intimacy? They think it starts in the bedroom. They think it starts in that exact moment where two people are about to do something physical. But the truth is, it starts way before that. It starts with communication. And I don't mean some heavy, clinical, sit-down conversation where you're ticking boxes about what's allowed and what isn't. I mean the kind of connection where you're attuned to each other, where you're not afraid to ask questions, to play, to laugh, and to actually say what you like. We put so much pressure on ourselves to know exactly what to do, to get it perfect, as if there's some secret manual out there that everyone else has read except us. But here's the thing, there is no universal script. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one man might do nothing for another, and the only way to find out is through communication. The best lovers in the world aren't the ones who know every technique. They're the ones who pay attention, who ask, who listen. And that's the part most people skip because it feels vulnerable. To say, "Do you like this?" or "Show me how you like it," feels like admitting we don't already know. But let me ask you, which do you think creates more intimacy? Pretending to know, fumbling through it, hoping it lands, or leaning in with curiosity and saying, "Tell me what drives you crazy. Show me what feels amazing for you." That isn't weakness. That's strength. That's confidence. Think about it like this. When you're learning to dance with someone, do you assume you'll nail every step from the start? Of course not. You pay attention to how they move. You let them guide you sometimes, and then you find your rhythm together. That's what makes it electric. Intimacy works exactly the same way. And men, by the way, aren't used to being asked what they like. Women get asked all the time, or at least they're expected to know what they like, to communicate it. But a lot of men, they don't get that same luxury. Which means that when you take the time to say, "Tell me how you want it," you're already giving him something rare. You're showing that you're not just going through the motions. You're making him feel chosen, seen, understood. That's not just physical. That's deeply emotional. And here's a secret. When you make someone feel safe enough to tell you what they want, they will give themselves to you more fully. They'll let go of inhibitions. They'll stop overthinking. They'll be present. And that's when intimacy stops being mechanical and starts being unforgettable. Because it's not about the act itself. It's about the fact that the act becomes a shared creation. You're not doing something to him, you're doing something with him. Now, let's address the fear that always comes up. But what if I ask, and it kills the moment? What if it ruins the mood? It won't if you do it with confidence. Think about how attractive it feels when someone leans in, looks you in the eye, and says, "Show me what you like." That's not killing the mood. That's igniting it. That's giving permission for the experience to be as unique as the two of you are. You don't have to ask in a formal way. You can tease it out of him with playfulness. Whisper something like, "Tell me if you want it slower or if you want it rougher." Or say with a smile, "I want to make this amazing for you. Guide me." You're inviting him into the process, and that invitation is sexy. It's not a questionnaire, it's an interaction. And once you've opened that door, the communication doesn't stop. Pay attention to the cues that don't come in words. Listen to his breathing. Notice the subtle shifts in his body. If he tenses, if he leans in, if he makes a sound, those are all forms of feedback. And when you respond to that, when you adjust in real time, you're showing him that you're listening with more than your ears. You're listening with your whole body. The truth is, confidence doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from knowing you can figure it out together. And if you want to stand out, if you want to give him an experience he'll never forget, it's not about some secret technique. It's about creating an atmosphere where he feels comfortable enough to let go, to tell you what he craves, to trust that you want to know him, not just please him. Because at the end of the day, pleasure without connection is forgettable. Connection is what makes the memory last. And connection begins with communication. So before you even think about technique, before you start worrying about whether you're doing it right, remember this: the sexiest thing you can bring to the table is not perfection, it's presence. And presence begins the moment you choose to ask, to listen, and to show that you care enough to get it right for him. That's where it all starts. Confidence. It's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, isn't it? Everyone says, be confident. But what does that actually mean when it comes to intimacy? Because confidence isn't about pretending you know everything. It's not about walking into the bedroom thinking you're some kind of expert, guaranteed to blow his mind. Confidence is about the energy you bring with you, the way you show up in the moment. And here's the truth: the mindset you carry matters way more than any technique you'll ever learn. Think about the times you've been around someone who is nervous, overthinking, worried about getting it wrong. How do you feel around them? You feel their tension, you sense their self-consciousness, and that energy pulls you out of the moment too. Now, flip it. Think about being around someone who isn't worried about messing up. They're just enjoying themselves, relaxed, present, having fun with you. That's magnetic. That's what makes the whole experience feel effortless. Intimacy is no different. If you go into it with a mindset of fear of not being good enough, fear of not doing it right, fear of being judged, you're going to rob yourself of the ability to actually connect. You'll be too stuck in your head to notice the other person. And nothing kills attraction faster than someone who isn't really there with you. Confidence is simply saying, I don't need to know everything. I just need to bring myself fully to this moment. It's playful. It's curious. It's unafraid of making adjustments. And the beauty is, the more you relax into that mindset, the more he relaxes too. You create a space where both of you can let go because you've set the tone. Now, let's bust a myth. Confidence isn't about performance. Too many people confuse confidence with acting like a porn star or putting on some exaggerated show. That's not confidence, that's theater. Real confidence is subtler. It's the ability to laugh when something funny happens instead of getting embarrassed. It's being able to tease, to pause, to smile, to shift gears without worrying that it means you've failed. Confidence is saying, I'm here, I'm enjoying this, and I'm not trying to prove anything. And let's be real, most men don't actually want someone who seems like they've rehearsed every move. They want someone who is present, who's enjoying themselves, who makes the experience feel like it's happening just for them. That's what confidence creates. Because when you're confident, you stop focusing on yourself and start focusing on him. And when he feels that attention, when he feels that you're not distracted by your own doubts, he melts. It's the same in any area of life, isn't it? Think about giving a presentation. If you stand up in front of people worried about forgetting your lines, they'll sense your nerves. But if you stand there knowing, even if I lose my place, I can keep going, I can make it work, suddenly you're free to actually connect with your audience. Intimacy is the same. Confidence is what allows you to let go of the script and just be. But here's the catch. Confidence isn't something you suddenly switch on in the moment. It's something you cultivate by changing the way you think about intimacy itself. If you think of it as a test you have to pass, you'll always feel anxious. If you think of it as an experience you're sharing, one that's meant to be fun, playful, and imperfect, suddenly the pressure disappears. You can breathe. You can enjoy yourself. And that enjoyment, that's what he feels. That's what makes him crave more. I'll tell you something powerful: enthusiasm beats expertise every single time. You don't need to be the most technically skilled person in the world if you bring genuine excitement, curiosity, and energy. Enthusiasm is infectious. If you're clearly enjoying yourself, if you're engaged, if you're lit up by the moment, he'll be swept up in it too. That's confidence. Not because you're flawless, but because you're fully alive in the moment. And when you bring that energy, you stop worrying about doing it like someone else or living up to some standard. You make it about the two of you. You create your own rhythm, your own style, your own connection. That's way more powerful than trying to mimic something you've seen or heard. Because at the end of the day, intimacy is not a performance, it's a collaboration. And confidence is the fuel that makes that collaboration feel effortless. So, if you ever catch yourself doubting, thinking, what if I'm not good enough? What if I mess it up? Remind yourself that confidence is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about trusting yourself to show up fully, to adapt, to enjoy. And when you do that, you stop being someone who's just doing the act, and you become someone he can't stop thinking about. That's the power of confidence. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to intimacy is that they think it's about the act itself, about the mechanics, about what happens in those few minutes. But if you want to create an experience that actually lingers, that makes him remember not just what you did, but how he felt, then you have to zoom out. Because the truth is, it's not just about the physical act, it's about the whole experience. Think about anticipation. Anticipation is everything. Sometimes the moments before something happens are even more powerful than the thing itself. That's why teasing eye contact, playful banter, those little things carry so much weight. They're like building blocks of desire. They make him crave the moment before it even arrives. And when you finally get there, it's not just physical pleasure, it's the release of all that built-up tension you've been creating. If you dive straight into the act with no build-up, it can feel mechanical. It's like starting a movie halfway through. You miss the story, you miss the connection, you miss the emotional charge that makes the climax matter. But when you take your time, when you create a journey, when you make him feel seen, wanted, and teased, you've already won before the act even starts. And here's the thing, focusing on the whole experience means using more than just one sense. Touch is obviously important, but don't forget sight, sound, even words. A look, a whisper, a smile. These things can make him feel more turned on than any one physical action. When you play with all of those elements, you make it impossible for him to disconnect. You bring him fully into the moment, and that's where intimacy becomes unforgettable. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been so present with someone that time just disappeared? You lost track of everything else because you weren't thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. You were just right there, fully engaged. That's what happens when you focus on the whole experience. You're not rushing to get to the end. You're savoring every second. And when you do that, you give him permission to savor it too. Now, a lot of people are afraid of slowing down. They think if they don't keep the intensity high all the way through, they'll lose the moment. But that's not how desire works. Desire is built through contrast, through the rise and fall, the teasing and the release, the slow and the fast. When you pace it, when you build tension and then ease off, you create a roller coaster effect. And what's more thrilling than that? It's not one steady line of pleasure. It's waves, it's rhythms, it's the unexpected. That's what keeps him hooked. The whole experience also includes the way you touch him outside of the act itself. Your hands matter. Your body matters. The way you run your fingers along his chest or down his arms, or the way you hold him. It all adds to the moment. Don't underestimate how powerful those small touches are. They tell him he's not just a body you're doing something to, he's a person you're fully connecting with. And that's what makes it meaningful. When you expand your view beyond the mechanics, something magical happens. You stop worrying so much about whether you're good at it. Because it's not just about technique, it's about atmosphere. If he feels desired, if he feels like you're enjoying yourself, if he feels like you're in it with him, that's already more powerful than any move you could perfect. And remember, enjoyment is contagious. If you're clearly having fun, if you're present, if you're playful, he's going to feel that energy. If you treat the whole experience as something you get to do, instead of something you have to do, he's going to be swept up in that. He won't just feel turned on, he'll feel lucky. Lucky that it's you, lucky that it's this moment, lucky that he gets to be here with someone who actually cares about making it extraordinary. This is why seduction isn't a set of tricks. It's an attitude. It's about deciding, I'm not just going to focus on the physical. I'm going to create a memory. That's the difference between an experience that fades away and one that sticks. Because when someone remembers you, they rarely remember the exact details of what you did. What they remember is how you made them feel. And when you focus on the whole experience, how he feels is the part that lasts. So don't rush. Don't skip the build-up. Don't think of it as just an act to perform. Think of it as a journey you're creating together, one that starts long before the physical part and continues long after. Because when you give him that, when you give him not just a moment but an experience, you become unforgettable. That's what makes the whole difference.